Dan, the Messi of AI. I mean, that's a tall order right there.
I think that's really what CARP's built. And in my opinion, it's still undiscovered as just a broader AI play, which is why I believe they're the Messi of AI. I think there's a golden path right now for them to monetize what we view as potentially $1 trillion market opportunity. And I think investors still have not recognized what this golden goose could be.
Yeah, I mean, as we just mentioned, the stocks moved pretty ferociously here in the last couple of months and since the start of the year. When you think about some of these newer AI applications in real time, they're already being applied on the battlefield. Case in point, Ukraine. Palantir is a key example of that. Do you think this is a situation where investors don't fully understand what this company does because so much of it is defense tech? And yes, I realize it's expanding out to the commercial side too, but there's a lot that they can't talk about, for example.
Well, I think that's the biggest misperception. I can tell you, we're talking to many in the 202 area code. The reputation of Palantir speaks for itself in terms of, any sort of operations, three-letter agencies. Now, if you're an enterprise CIO, and this is the conversations I've had, you're looking toward AI platform approach, Palantir is potentially the first call. And that's why I think in this AI gold rush, what I view as the fourth industrial revolution, of course it's NVIDIA, Microsoft top of the mountain with Nadella. You look at second, third, fourth derivatives, right now Palantir front and center. And that's why I think this is a stock. You look at our bull case model, I think this is ultimately $25, and I think as they execute, more investors start to look at it.
Wow, and the stock's trading at about 17 or about 17.50 right now. Steve, want to get your thoughts on this, especially since Alex Karp, one of the co-founders and the current CEO of Palantir, did pen a very long, I'll say, op-ed in the New York Times about AI earlier this week.
Yeah, and comparing it to Oppenheimer and how this is really an opportunity. We hear so much, at least this is Karp's view, we hear so much from the community developing AI about being responsible and safe. And even years ago, he brings up the examples of Microsoft employees upset about working with the Army and Google employees upset about doing the digital satellite imagery. He seems to kind of embrace it. I just want to pick out one quote from this. I mean, he calls for a, quote, more intimate collaboration between the state and technology sector, really comparing it to what Oppenheimer did, if you saw the movie or read the book or the history lesson about that, working hand in hand with the government before someone else does it. And he brings up the case about Ukraine. And I guess the other thing, Dan, I was kind of curious for your take on this, because there is a meme stockiness to Palantir too. I'm wondering how much of that factors into your calculation there,
too. No doubt. I mean, there's a huge retail presence.
Right.
And I think this is one where maybe retail has been ahead of institutional in terms of understanding the actual potential AI story. I can tell you in my conversations today, it's really institutional investors being like, okay, what am I missing in this story? Where is the actual total addressable market opportunity? And can they go from government to commercial? Because I think when you start to look at it, that for them is really the opportunity. And if you're a CIO of an enterprise, there's no better reference accounts than those in the 202 area code.
But what does that look like? I mean, if you think about it, okay, so it's very opaque what they're doing on the military side of it. I'm just curious, what does that look like on the commercial side? Like, what are you seeing there? And especially, I know they're growing some clients and so forth. What are you seeing there?
I'd say from a platform approach, in terms of scale, and in terms of actual use cases, they're probably the first call. I think they're probably in this market the purest AI play out there. Now, they built it, others are coming, but it just speaks to our view in this fourth industrial revolution. Palantir is going to be a big player.
The first time I ever heard a major company say machine learning came from Palantir.
Yeah, and of course there's applications that, supply chain, which is a big area now for many companies, manufacturing applications. There's something to be said about, okay, you work with the government, you work on, in a classified capacity. You have these high level clearances for things like cloud applications as well, which only handful of companies do. Palantir is one of them. You're going to keep my data safe. I'm sure there's probably that in of itself has a certain cachet with commercial clients, I would imagine. But how does it happen alongside an uncertain macro environment where people are tightening belts?
And then to the tightening belts, I think we started to see with IBM. I think we saw with Microsoft, Google, and others. I mean, for big tech, we're seeing an uptick. Ultimately, when it comes to AI, that's potentially 8-10% of budgets next year. And I do think you talk about reference accounts. You could sleep well at night when Palantir ultimately has your data in terms of from an AI use case perspective. And they're the only ones out there. They've proven it. Now they're proving it in the enterprise. That becomes a bigger piece. That's why then the stock gets re-rated, which is why we're bullish on it.